Good. Hey, everybody. Welcome. And we're winding ourselves closer and closer to in the holiday season and closer to Christmas. So, exciting time for family. And, I know Palafox Street's looking beautiful downtown at night. And so, hope everybody's having a great holiday season. I want to mention a couple things. Obviously, great news yesterday in the CRA meeting on Monday night about the Baptist and PACES attainable housing project that was approved by CRA, the $460,000 of CRA TIF funds to go towards the potential 9% tax credit project that would create 102 senior units, 51 one-bedroom, 51 two-bedroom. So now that was really the first step, and then ultimately now is we cross our fingers and hope that it's a very competitive bid statewide through Florida Housing Finance. So that funding has been approved. That's required for these projects that municipal governments have that participation. So that's step one. Step two is we compete with everyone else in the state of Florida for that 9% deal, and hope we cross our fingers and we hope that we get a good outcome. I'm not sure on timeline. I can probably get that answer for you of when we hear back, but I do know that timeline was important in this case, that these applications go in annually. So that's why the timing was what it was to get this in December, to get this 9% request in. We're only allowed to have one at any given time in that year. So more to come on that, and certainly we can figure out if there is a specific deadline where we'll hear back, we'll let you know. And then in the meeting on Thursday, the council meeting, we're putting forth an ordinance about banning smoking and vaping in the vast majority of our parks. There was some state law that did not allow us to do that in previous years. Now some of that has changed. There are some exceptions that you'll see in there that seem maybe a little unique or as outliers. Some of that is still wrapped up in state law. So it's not so much that we were picking and choosing small finite exceptions. It's more so there were some limitations that we believed that we would have issues enforcing. So, but it's a step in the right direction, and I'm certainly in support of keeping our public spaces safer. Something we do in city buildings. It's something we do. Many organizations do. To keep people from secondhand smoke and things like that. And so hoping to get that across the finish line on Thursday. A couple other quick notes before I take some questions is the active transportation plan survey we have out to the public. We're extending that to December 23rd, a Friday. And we want your feedback. It's about becoming a more walkable, bikeable community, and something that you've heard me talk about during the campaign that I'm a huge proponent in our walkability and bikeability in the form of economic development. I believe that talent attraction is the new battlefront of economic development, and one of the things that attracts talented people to your community is how walkable are you and how bikeable are you. So I'm a big philosophical believer in this. So your feedback and the community's feedback is vital to us, and so we're extending that online survey to December 23rd. And it's at cityofpensacola.com/active transportation plan. So make sure that you get on, give us your feedback, and so we can create the walkable, bikeable community that you want. So that's your opportunity to share your ideas and thoughts with us. There's a new four-way stop coming to Langley, or multiple stop signs and improved crosswalks at two intersections, Langley and Hibiscus Avenue, and Langley and Leesway Boulevard. This has been in the works for a few months, but they're going to become four-way stop intersections, and the work is expected to begin this Thursday, weather permitting. So bear with us if there's any inconvenience as we go through those areas. Certainly, it's a project for the greater good, and again, keeping people safe in their cars and as pedestrians. So just to give a heads up to our community on that, and again, be patient with us as we get those projects completed. We also have Casey's got it for you. We just, as of this morning, received the Florida Aviation Economic Impact Study for our Pensacola Airport, and we have We've got a one-sheeter for you that they provided to us, but for the Pensacola Airport, there's $2.3 billion of economic impact and a $1.2 billion value add to our community. So, as you'll learn if you haven't already, I'm very data-driven, and we can all subjectively agree that the airport does great things for us. We're bursting at the seams. We continue to break records, but when you can see it in black and white in the data that we provide for you, those are huge numbers, but also not a surprise given the trajectory that we've seen with our airport. And it's important to point out, when I went to the legislative delegation meeting last week, that was one of my big asks. Not so much that it would be a direct legislative ask, but a priority for us is to get the $2.25 million funded for the study for our potential new terminal at the airport. That's a very big priority for me, and I feel very optimistic about the direction of that. We've had great conversations with FDOT, with our delegation, who've been very supportive, and they realize that every day that we don't have this first domino knocked over is another day that we don't have a terminal. And so if we're going to go that direction, this truly is the bottleneck. This is the starting point to get this design funded and be able to get down the road. We know the demand is there, and if we wait another year to fund the study, we wait another year to start the project. So it's a very, very high priority for me, and our team is at the airport, our administrative team, as well as, again, our delegation and FDOT. We've had great conversations with them, and we'll find out as we roll along in the spring here if we can get that across the finish line. But I will say that we're on a good trajectory, and it is something very, very important to us. So we'll hopefully continue to see that through. A couple of quick other things. We just received $637,000 in funding for a Hollis T. Williams multi-use path. I believe you got a release for that. It's about a half-mile path that runs from East Jordan to East Blunt Street, and it's part of the Hollis T. Williams Greenway Framework Plan, and it's been included. There's some more steps to go. This is not something that's going to go under construction tomorrow. It's in the FDOT District 3 work program for fiscal year 24 to 28. So, but another step in the right direction for what we've all envisioned to happen under the interstate at Hollis T. Williams. Let's see, the last couple dates I want to share. There's a car seat giveaway and safety installation with the Pensacola Fire Department on Saturday, December 17th at 8 a.m. at Greater Little Rock Baptist Church, 901 North A Street. And so I know we've got some car seats to give away, and it's also making sure that they're installed correctly. We've got a great fire department, and this is not a common thing in communities for us to have the licensed skill set to be installers of these car seats. So I've been there, you're a new parent and you're second guessing whether you put that car seat in correctly. Here's an opportunity, of course, free of charge for you to come in there and make sure that that we keep our children here safe. We postponed the public art installation for the Shoots to Cubes tomorrow because of weather, and we do not have a new date yet, so we will let you know about that. But I think that's it for me. Any questions? Yep.
Mayor, the Triumph Board meets Thursday.
Yep.
At the delegation meeting last week, Scott Luth said there was 2 or 3 exciting projects. He, I guess, Florida West, is working with you at the port. Mm-hmm. The pre-application for the supply chain enhancement project over there, phase 1 and 2, was approved several months ago by the Triumph staff. What's the status of the application? Has it been submitted yet?
So what I would say is the status, it's one of the, probably what I'm spending the most time on this week, or close to the most time on, is getting a revision of the original Triumph ask. We obviously, you've heard the discussion about American Magic and their involvement at the port, something, again, I'm a huge supporter of. But we're going to get our ducks in a row, and we're going to make sure, I've had some great conversations with Rick Harper, Triumph, and folks who have gotten some of those projects across the finish line. And so there will be some revisions to what our ask is, and understand what was presented to you previously under the former administration was a potential pre-app. So understand that that was not a full application that had gone through. It was kind of gauging interest. And I think there were some question marks of just, how certain things would work. So again, Clark, Rebecca, Amy, we're all getting together this week, and I've had meetings with other strategic partners in this, and so what you'll see from us, and I can't give you an exact date yet, but in relatively short order, what you'll see from us is likely a collaborative with Florida West and others, kind of revision of what that pre-app may look like.
Was the feedback from the Triumph staff, was the city advised to scope this down a little bit in terms of the amount of ask?
Not necessarily. I think what we're looking to do is we want to put our best foot forward. And what I mean is, there are aspects of the pre-app that I think will remain very similar or exactly the same. There's some that we may revise because, again, at the end of the day, what we want is what's best for our port and what's best for the growth of our port, and we also want it to be successful. So, no, not in those terms. They did not say, this will work, this won't work. But I think as I've learned and I've gained some knowledge about what is more likely to be successful and what isn't, I think those are that's the nuance we're looking at within this project. So it's not to say that anything that was in the previous, definitely wouldn't be, but I think I just want us to get a little more, narrow our scope a little bit more, and again, try to ensure that we've got a product in a proposal to Triumph that can get across the finish line. So again, more to come on that. I couldn't tell you exactly what that's going to look like. We're entertaining some different things, and we're going to have, we're going to go through line by line and make sure that what we present in this revised proposal has the best chance to be successful.
To follow up on that, do you know what the timeline of that will be as far as submitting a revised pre-application?
I don't want to hold us to that because probably a lot of it is determined on how much remains within is legwork that we've done that was in the original pre-app presentation, and then how much of it is new. There's also scenarios where we split out different things potentially. You could say, all right, well, this stands on its own as a Triumph ask, and then this is later. And so, not to be evasive, it depends on what comes through there. It could be that something happened, if it is split out, let's say, could be that one ask is very quick and then the other one is a little bit later, or it could be a holistic ask that would be at a determined time. But what I would say is I think we're going to learn a lot this week in terms of at least sequencing, and by next week we'd probably be able to have a clearer picture of what that could potentially be, and then how that fits into Triumph's timeline of when we would present.
And I understand you're still looking at the specifics of it, but I guess is there one thing about the application as submitted that stands out that you think should be different?
It's not necessarily one thing. There's a lot of things that go into a successful Triumph grant. It's identifying job creation, what the match is going to be. How is the city, county, and other partners participating financially, and what their match is. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and that's why they're difficult, to put together. But what I would say is, obviously, understandably, I wasn't as involved in that, first ask because of the timing, and I think it's good that we're pushing that conversation forward. I don't discourage that, but as I learn and as I adapt to and learn more and more about the Triumph process, I've got some ideas that I think that will just help us be some modifications that would help us be more successful. I don't want to speak to those because I'm again still in a learning phase. I've got some ideas and some things that I want to test, so to speak, and see if that does make us more successful. But more to come on that. As I said, follow up with me next week, and I'll know a lot more through the several meetings that we're going to have this week.
The county is rushing. I guess that's the right word. They're rushing a Triumph ask in right now for OLFA, and it's pretty sizable.
Okay.
And have you gotten any feedback from the Triumph staff about Pensacola coming in with a bundle here all at one time? I remember Mayor Robinson said early, when they did the ST engineering earlier, the Triumph staff had said to them, you need to phase this stuff so that we have to be impartial to the entire 8-county area.
Sure.
That one location doesn't get a big bag all at once. It has to be. Have you heard anything about that?
Not specific. I don't want to speak to the county ask because I don't. I'm not informed enough to speak on it. But I will say, in a general sense, the understanding that I have as we sit here today is that Triumph is just as optimistic and excited to see projects successful in phases than it is that it's one large ask. And as you can imagine, John, and that was my line of questioning, is to say, hey, before we do something, before we pick what's the right strategy to get this done. Let me just lose it.
You can continue.
Okay.
They can hear you on the mic.
Before we pick the right strategy, make sure that we get this done. I don't want to miss opportunity either, right? If the right strategy is a larger ask that's more all inclusive, then obviously that we would go that direction. And but what I've been told and what I've learned through this process is that seeing phases of success is a good thing too, and that's something that actually Triumph likes to see. And there's examples of that even in our own community with IHMC. So we are. That is in our consideration as we start to look at this revised Triumph ask, is that we don't feel the need that we have to get everything into one, that we can have success with a 1.0 and a 2.0. So that's certainly one of the things that we're considering and looking at right now.
Mayor, I have a question about the CRA vote that happened last
Uh-huh.
night. Where is the city at as far as negotiating purchasing Coop 3 in the park and that historic house there?
So as it stands now, that is still in place, an agreement. Ultimately, again, this is before I took over, but there's an agreement in place to say if 500 units of affordable, attainable housing is built, then we would purchase that property for $500,000. So that happened before I was here, but that's still certainly an idea that I support. But we got a long way to go from there. If we obviously, if everything falls correctly and this 9% tax credit's awarded, then that's 205-ish units that would be on the property. That's something that I still support and am willing to see across the finish line. But of course, we want to see what's going to happen with attainable housing on the property as a whole. So I guess that's a longer way, Jim, of saying we're going to continue down that road of supporting the idea of buying that park and enhancing that if we see enough impact that helps us with our housing crisis.
To follow on that a bit, just to make sure that I'm understanding
Sure.
it correctly. When we talk about the 9% credit, that is a 9% credit to the developer that is subsidized by the state. That's why we have to apply for it.
We can actually even get you a kind of a one-sheeter that can explain
That
this.
would be so
Yeah,
good.
I know.
And
Yeah.
I can just share it with everybody in the newsroom because it's just one of those things. I know it gets like real mechanical for us, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I totally understand. And what I would say is the 9%, by definition, the 9% is a dollar for dollar federal tax credit. Now, how the developer leverages that tax credit, and that's what can be explained, the minutia can be explained, but ultimately they're able to leverage that tax credit to get financing. But understand that these projects, if you saw last night, they're required to stay. There are a lot of rules, as you can imagine, around being awarded this tax credit in terms of what you can charge for rent. That's all set. The $460,000, that is set. That wasn't negotiated. That's not a number that's negotiated by the city and the developer or anything like that. That is the standard. That's what you pay as the municipalities, the $460,000. And also understand that they have to stay in the attainable pool for 50 years, these units. And as a matter of fact, specifically to the developer, there was a good question that was asked during the meeting yesterday about well, can the developer build this and then just turn around, and then sell it? Does that change? In order to earn this credit, the developer has to own it for at least 17 years, I believe is the number 7. They have to operate it for 17 years with no change, and it has to stay in that attainable pool for 50. And there's actually no property tax credit on it at this point. I believe property tax credits can come into play later, and I think the idea is to continue to create value for people to operate it, through those 50 years. But for the time being, there is no, city tax incentive or anything that's on that property. That is, even though a nonprofit is buying it, will be on the tax rolls, that property.
That was my next question, just to state the obvious, the city has to come up with this money on the front end.
Yep.
But then moving forward, can't collect property tax until something changes. If something
Correct.
changes.
I want to be clear in saying there is a mechanism down the road that, again, to continue to provide value and success of a owner or an operator for 50 years, I believe there is some options. I don't know enough to speak on the exact details, but what I do know is, even though this is a nonprofit and even though it's being purchased from Baptist, that my understanding is that it is within the property tax rolls, that there is no city tax incentive that we're giving in addition to the $460,000.
Whole different subject. I'm
Yeah.
curious. We've been doing a bit of reporting on the proposal to ban the baking and the smoking. What was the onus of that? Were there specific complaints? Would an individual bring it forward? How did that start?
Yeah, I know Councilman Jones is. I was talking with his constituents. It's something that he's heard more and more, and it's also, I think, some of the genesis of the timing was that we were incapable of doing this because of state law. So so that's a relatively new step, and I don't know what the exact date was, but we weren't able to do this basically until recently. And the way I feel about it, it's the same policy that we have. There's a reason we do it in public buildings. There's a reason we do it, and there are plenty of outdoor spaces, private spaces to be able to do that if you want. But I feel like we maintain 94 parks to encourage safety and children to play and physical fitness and all those things. I think it's a step in the right direction to say that if I send my kid down to a park or we go play at a park, that's not something that you have to worry about. So again, I think there's plenty of property, plenty of other ways if that's something that you want to do, that you'd be able to do that within the city limits. But I think that will certainly help us, and it'll help us promote the things that we talk about are important to us in parks and in recreation, is a safe place that you're not going to be breathing secondhand smoke and things like that.
I'll follow up on that. If the council passes this, then the enforcement of it kind of becomes your administration's responsibility. How are you approaching that? And do you think, I think just the penalty for breaking is kind of a general penalty, which seems kind of steep for, I think it's like, I can't remember exactly, like $500 fine or something. What do you think? How do you think about the penalty?
Obviously this is something that our folks will be aware of, our law enforcement will be aware of. Of course, you're right. In general, anytime you add a new ordinance and you say to prohibit something, you've got to be able to say we're going to enforce it. I think we're going to, anytime something's new, it takes a little bit of an evaluation period, to say, okay, well, we have put this ban in place, which on its own merit should limit or discourage that. And if we continue to see persistent issues, and it's not to say that we aren't going to enforce it. Again, we're going to be aware of it. But sometimes you can enforce an ordinance like this, and you can say, and it'd be, hey, we see a significant drop, or we're not dealing with nearly as many issues. Perfect example I think about is the scooters. With going to only a seated scooter, our complaints have gone down significantly since we've moved to a seated scooter that is more typically on the road. It's not because we had to write tickets. It's because that was just the general understanding that made it easier to follow. So again, I think we'll be in an evaluation mode, to be aware of it. We're not trying to play gotcha with anybody. We're not, with our citizens. We just say, hey, we think this is the right direction to go with safety. And if we see it as a persistent problem, then we can certainly take the next step in having a more direct approach at making sure that it's enforced. Yep.
Mayor, going back to the Cooper Park
Yeah.
project. The reporting has been statewide on this program. And as you mentioned, that these applications can take years as they work their way through the bureaucracy. Are you concerned about expectations management here? And if so, what would be your message to the community realistically about this project?
Yeah, well, obviously we've just left the area of which we can control successfully, and we enter an area of which we can't. And so we'll cross our fingers and hope that our application is one of the best. This is something that communities have been applying for years. This is the first time the City of Pensacola has put their name in the hat for this. It has happened at the county. It has been successful at the county level. And Paces, the people that will be doing this development, have successful developments, several. I think of the one on in Brownsville by the church back there. So they have a proven track record of getting projects across the finish line here and operating them. So, it's tough to say, but we're going to control what we can control, which is we realize that we have a housing issue on our hands, and I continue to remind people that this is a multi-front approach. We have to get tactical about specific housing as it pertains to, like, these projects where 100% of the housing is for people at 80% AMI or below, and about 80% of the buildings for people at 60% AMI or below. This is true tactical, a shot at something that is a huge need for us, as well as continuing to support more inventory. And we're seeing more inventory about to come online on Garden Street. We've got a development going on or potentially at Main Street here, and those are good things too. And as I've said to you guys before, we have to leave this notion that you can only do one of these things at a time. It's our duty as a city to help promote both of these things at the same time. And it's not one or the other. It's not of a market rate subdivisions being built that they should be criticized because it's not attainable housing. There's two different things happening at once, and we have a duty to support both. And so that's the way I would look at it is we're going to roll out as many opportunities as we can and take advantage of as many opportunities as we can to provide the housing that is desperately needed here. And when it reaches the point of where we can't control, we'll cross our fingers and say another extra prayer at night and see if we can get this thing across the finish line.
I had a follow-up question on the Halls T. Williams
Yeah.
park. And I understand that the multi-use pass is going through the FDOT process, and the city is constructing the skate park part of it. Do you know what the status is of the actual rest of the greenway? Because my understanding was the county was supposed to be leading that. Have you heard anything about the progress or timeline of that?
I haven't. Your information, as far as I understand, is correct in that there's county participation as well as city participation here. We can get you some more clear information, but obviously going back to what we can control, things like the skate park. Certainly, we're motivated to get any and all parts of this project done, be it stormwater, be it walk paths, be it the skate park. But yes, your summary is correct that this is not something that we control solely, as the city, and we're not the, we don't hold the ability to make the decision on moving something faster or slower. There's some collaboration that needs to happen at the city and county level. That is my understanding. But if we certainly we can work on that after this. If there are any specific timelines as it pertains to something being complete, we'll get that to you.
Mayor, later today, the Children's Trust is going to vote on a tranche of applications.
Mm-hmm.
$4.5 million out of their total 10-year haul of $10 million. Pretty big vote tonight if it goes according to the staff plan. One of the projects on the table is the City of Pensacola. There's an ask for $540,000 submitted by Parks and Rec Department. Could you give us a little clarity on that, if it's approved, how that will fit into the needs and the programs that are likely to come from that?
We've got some folks here that can probably give you more detail than I can in terms of what that specific ask is, but I will tell you this, I'm obviously familiar with the Children's Trust, and what I've said this entire time, both campaigning and now in this position, is we can't take a reactive approach to the need for education in our community. You know, we can't say, well, that's the school district. That's not us. It is us. It's our kids, and we understand the value of being able to provide everything we can to every Pensacola kid we can, and there's so many impacts to that, and even economic development, you know, quality of schools. We have to take an active approach. So I support any effort, be it the city or be it a partner, you know, anyone out there that can help improve the lives of the kids in our community is a must. And we're not going to sit, I would say, just philosophically, and Adrian can speak to details of this specific ask, but we're not going to sit on the sideline and hope that, you know, and say that's not our job. You know, it is our job, and any way that we can be active in that, certainly, I very, very much support and promote. But Adrian, if you want to give us some details on that.
Thank you, Mayor. You're absolutely correct. Tanya Vaden has applied and got us in kind of like the final position to be able to access this grant. And what is basically for us, from our department starting out, and it's one of the challenges that Mayor has talked about us trying, from the Parks and Recreation Department, trying to be more proactive in our centers, better utilizing our parks. But one of the missing ingredients for our centers is stuff like daycare and those kinds of things. We've not had the manpower or staff, I should say, or the funds to do an effective job for that at our centers. So she's applied for the grant, and we're very excited about the opportunity, maybe even getting a staff person full-time to be able to adequately do something about that in our community. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. Again, just those dates one more time. Saturday, December 17th at 8 a.m. for the car seat giveaway at Greater Little Rock Baptist Church, 901 North A Street. And the online survey, one more reminder, December 23rd for the active transportation plan. And we want your feedback as community members of what you want to see out of your walkable, bikeable community. And that's extended through Friday, December 23rd, cityofpensacola.com/active transportation plan. But with that, thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it.